Do you really think you could survive a real zombie apocalypse? You probably think that if it ever happened, it would give you a course to unleash your survivalist skills, and that somehow you become a real life equivalent of a Dal Dixon. It'll give you a free pass to basically murder zombies. But as Adol Lee pointed out in a previous audio clip, it's not quite that simple now, is it? I mean, let's face it, if you went somewhere to remote corners of the earth and survived simply on rations and off the fat of the land, how long do you think you'd last? Maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, absolute most, absolute tops. And yet that's in a developed society, a steady society. Now, if society crumbles, then what happens? Just take death, for instance, the death of a loved one or a relative, family, friends. That can be traumatic. Best case scenario, it puts you on a hell of a downer. Worst case scenario, it makes you suicidal. Now, if they're coming back to life and trying to eat you, well then what, that's just hell, isn't it? So do you think you could deal with that scenario? Do you think you could really, I mean, asking you deep down inside, do you think you could deal with it? If a loved one or even a child, your own child, came sort of back to life, so to speak, and started trying to eat you, could you deal with that? Because somehow I'm doubting that's possible for you to deal with that. I mean, could you deal with that? Would you be able to skin an animal to keep yourself alive, sort of thing? Would you be able to kill another human being if it meant having to defend yourself? Because of course that's a possibility, isn't it? I think the way pop culture treats a zombie apocalypse is like something that can be done for a bit of fun, but I think people often overlook the true facts and the true horror behind what would develop of such a situation. I don't think many people would be capable of surviving that sort of situation. And you're probably thinking, well, I've raised a few good points and maybe I have just killed off your dream of becoming some sort of badass in times of a zombie apocalypse. But not quite, because you see there is a flip side to all of this. Like humans, for instance, one of the most adaptable and resourceful species on the planet. All these zombie apocalypse scenarios are all theoretical, many of which, and pop culture at least, are designed to be influenced to entertain the masses. For instance, humans are probably the most sociable creatures on the planet, and yet somehow it's more entertaining, of course, for them to want to turn on each other in times of an apocalypse. In real life, of course, they probably team up, help each other out because there's strength in numbers. But of course, when it comes to entertainment, where's the fun in that? No, it's more fun for every other human being you meet to be some sort of arsehole who just wants to try and kill you. That's more entertaining. It's conflict, isn't it? Of course it is. Also, in real life, for instance, many people have UPVC doors. Now, if a zombie can get by one of them, if it can bring one of them down, I don't know how it could bring one of them, but if it could, it would take a long, long time for that to happen. But of course, where's the entertainment in that? That's why in many of these movies or TV programs or games, every single door is a wooden door. It makes it more entertaining. And then, of course, there's the jump moments in every zombie TV program, film, game, everything, everywhere. There's always that one little tricky zombie that's sort of hiding in the dark corner of a room, or just hanging about waiting for the person to get close enough for them to lunge at them. Of course, if a zombie apocalypse happened in real life, this is not what would happen, because zombies just want to eat your flesh, eat your flesh, eat your flesh. They're not thinking, I want to wait here for a few seconds and make him jump. No. They're too stupid for that. They don't think. That's kind of the whole point of what the zombies are about. But of course, that wouldn't be entertaining. Hence, they make zombies hide in places and seemingly lunge out at people. Then, of course, there's the army. People that are there to protect us, to stop the very fabric of society from crumbling. And all these movies and TV programs, etc., the army always gets overwhelmed. They're kind of a metaphor for our safety, really, aren't they? Literally as well as metaphorically, whatever that means. But yeah, they're always the first to go because they're always on the front lines. But You know, I feel sorry for people in the army actually, because they're always quite depicted as being fairly useless when it's not the case at all. Do you honestly think they don't train for these sort of viral outbreaks? Do you honestly think that they're trained to deal with going to war and having to fight with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, but you know, a few people trying to bite them, they're fucked? No, not quite. You really have to separate fact from fiction in these scenarios, you see. Obviously, if it was a virus that was sort of transferred from person to person, etc., then that might not be so bad. If it's an airborne virus, and obviously that's very, very terrible, but you have to consider the facts from what pop culture would have you believe. And of course now I've probably made a zombie apocalypse seem mildly entertaining. But assuming it ever happens and there's a huge outbreak and it's hell on earth, and maybe it will cause you to unleash the inner survivalist badass that you always knew you were. Maybe you become a sort of person that, if it was like a televised, that people would sort of cheer for and root for. Maybe one day you'll find out one way or the other.